historically excluded groups are supported. So we do this in a lot of different ways, but just to mention one, we're about to launch a funding program to defray the costs of field experiences, which can be really transformative for our students. But gear to be out in the field, like scuba gear, can be prohibitively expensive. And it can be a barrier to our students having these really profound research experiences. And we have this great opportunity as being part of the CSU to really make headway in an effort to make sure that the California ocean and coastal workforce is reflective of California's racial and ethnic diversity. So I think I'm reading this audience fairly to say that, you know, we believe policy should be informed by good science. And in fact, several people have made mention of this today. In fact, I think it's such a wide held belief within environmental policy that I think some of us think that the way science and policy interact is straightforward. My perception is that it's a lot more complicated than it first might seem. And despite the best of intentions, there's sometimes just a mismatch between scientists and policymakers, and this can occur for a lot of different reasons. So we're promoting the integration of science and policy through a new program that we call the State Science Information Needs Program. The cornerstone of this program is that we work with state agencies to develop competitive requests for proposals around their specific scientific needs. Rather than applicants telling us how they think policy decision makers could use their science, we ensure from the beginning that the state agencies will use the results. And by next month, when we fund our last round of funding, our third and last, our activities will have resulted in 3.1 million of new research being conducted at the CSU. And these iterative interactions between CSU faculty members and state agencies, we really think this is key to developing these long-term durable partnerships between scientists and policymakers. And it's this type of partnership that is really going to further science to policy integration. So I'm really excited for today. We've been working really hard on this presentation, and it's our first big opportunity to share the results of one of our funded projects. The one you're going to hear about today is being led by Dr. Eunah Ho from San Diego State University. But first, we're going to hear from Dr. Scott Coffin, who leads efforts at the State Water Resources Control Board to monitor and manage microplastic pollution in drinking water and the marine environment. Scott began researching microplastic effects on aquatic organisms and humans in 2014, starting with his graduate research in environmental toxicology at UC Riverside. Scott is one of those state agency folks that I mentioned at the beginning that really helped us develop our request for proposals and helped us evaluate proposals. And I wanted to say I'm being pretty brief in my introductions today. Some of you may have received our speaker biographies ahead of time. My colleague Kim is also going to share those and a briefing paper on microplastics through the chat. So with that, I will now turn it over to Scott.
Thank you, Amy. Really happy to be here. I can go ahead and screen share. Once able, alrighty. So the plastic waste crisis has recently gained attention in the media. It seems that everywhere we look, we find these plastic particles, from the deepest part of the ocean to the tallest mountain. While plastic degrades very slowly in the environment, it does rapidly break down into smaller particles. Once they're below about 5 millimeters, we call these microplastics. We are currently exponentially increasing the production of plastic. And if we continue with business as usual, we will double the rate at which plastic enters the environment by the year 2030. Recent studies have found microplastics in 93% of US drinking water, and plastic packaging is known to contribute significantly to our exposure. One study found that babies could consume up to 1 million microplastics per day just from those polypropylene feeding bottles. Additionally, we're breathing microplastics all the time, and between 2 and 13% of indoor dust is made of plastic. Once consumed, plastics accumulate in organs and they can be transferred to our offspring through the placenta. Studies in rodents have found the accumulation of microplastics in the brain, lung, liver, testes, and ovaries. The only study to look for microplastics in human placentas has found them in 4 out of 6 samples. A study published just last week developed a method to quantify microplastics in human blood. They applied this method to 22 people and found detectable levels of microplastics in 17 of those people. This is an important advancement as this will allow us to determine actual human exposure, which is an important part of estimating risk. To address public concerns of microplastics, the California legislature passed 2 groundbreaking bills in 2018. Senate Bill 1422 mandates that the state monitor for microplastics in drinking water and, if necessary, issue health-based guidance levels regarding acceptable levels in drinking water. The second bill, Senate Bill 1263, also authored by Senator Portantino, mandates that the Ocean Protection Council will submit a statewide microplastic strategy by the end of this year, or by the end of last year, and conduct monitoring and assess risks. To meet the legislative mandates to assess risks of microplastics, we convened a health effects workshop with global experts to develop risk assessment frameworks and apply them using available data. This was accomplished through a meta-analysis of the available toxicity literature, and we examined relationships between particle characteristics and toxicity, adverse effect pathways, and dose response. Our working group developed screening criteria for assessing the reliability of studies and applied these to the 29 existing rodent studies for microplastics. Of these, we found 12 that were fit for purpose, which we went on to further scrutiny. Of these reliable studies, 4 reported effects on male reproduction and 2 reported effects on female reproduction. These studies consistently showed adverse impacts to sperm deformity and sperm count, as well as decreased testosterone in male rodents. Despite these findings that indicate impacts to male and female reproductive systems are likely from microplastics, we cannot quantitatively assess the risks to humans just yet. Our expert work group found 3 significant problems that prevent a quantitative risk assessment to humans, which includes an inadequate effects database with limited information on the relative toxicity between different polymers, shapes, and sizes, unknown effect mechanisms, and incomplete exposure data. Science is needed to assess human health risks of microplastics, and right now we are about 5 to 10 years out in terms of being able to accurately and quantitatively assess these risks. We need exposure data on what we are drinking, breathing, and eating. We also need high quality laboratory toxicity studies to determine how the effects are occurring and at what concentrations they occur. In addition to assessing risks to humans through drinking water, our expert group also assessed risks to aquatic ecosystems to fulfill the requirements of Senate Bill 1263. Our expert group identified numerous ways in which microplastics harm wildlife. In addition to effects from associated chemicals, plastic also causes toxicity through its biological interactions as a particle. Plastics can entangle animals, and once they're ingested, they cause internal lacerations, food dilution, and can even accumulate in tissues and cause cellular damage. Our expert workshop determined that there is significant evidence regarding the ecological effects of microplastics and developed a tiered risk-based framework to assess and manage those risks. This framework is made up of several tiers from protective to predictive of adverse effects, with management actions associated with those tiers. For example, if there's an exceedance of the lowest threshold, we would advise increased monitoring, whereas an exceedance of the highest threshold may induce more aggressive management strategies or even fish consumption advisories. A similar risk assessment has been completed for the world's oceans, looking prospectively under a business as usual scenario. They found minimal risk currently in the world's oceans, 0.17%. However, if we increase with business as usual, these risks are expected to increase up to 1.62% for the global world's oceans, with enclosed water bodies like the Mediterranean and the Yellow Sea expected to have much higher risks than out in the open ocean. Even if we could magically stop producing plastic altogether today, microplastics concentrations in the environment will continue to increase exponentially in the environment. This is due to the breakdown of existing macroplastic debris that's already out there. So right now we have the opportunity to reduce this inevitable plastic toxicity debt that we will pass on to later generations. To address this wicked problem, the California Ocean Protection Council adopted a comprehensive statewide microplastics strategy this year, which plots the path forward to monitoring and managing the problem with science and policy tools. The Ocean Protection Council strategy takes a two-pronged approach, which includes some multi-benefit, no-regret solutions to act on the problem now and science to inform future actions. This strategy is both bold and ambitious and will require input from many stakeholders in all sectors. The strategy recognizes that risk management should not just occur once plastic has already become waste or has already entered the environment. By addressing the problem at every stage, from a system level approach focused on circularizing our economy, all the way to improving waste management, we can avoid pursuing ineffective solutions that shift the burdens onto other locations, communities, or sectors. The strategy's science needs call for monitoring in the environment to assess risks, identify sources and pathways into the environment, and develop solutions based on those findings. By repeating this process on a continual basis, we can monitor the success of these intervention strategies and adapt them accordingly. The first step in monitoring is developing a standardized method. Through a partnership with the Southern California Coastal Water Research Project, we developed standardized methods using two types of instruments for drinking water, ocean water, fish tissue, and sediment. The method performance was evaluated through an interlaboratory validation study with 40 labs in 7 different countries. And this is one of the first ever standardized methods for microplastics. With these new standardized methods, we can now begin monitoring in California's waters. The National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine released a report in 2021 that recommends the US develop a national microplastics monitoring network. We, as in California, can lay the groundwork for this coordinated national network. With that, thank you very much. I'll pass it over to Amy.
Thank you so much, Scott. That was wonderful. So our next speaker is Dr. Eunah Ho with San Diego State University's School of Public Health. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, Dr. Ho leads a team that received funding from COAST to research the toxicological effects of synthetic microfibers and tire wear particles. Dr. Ho investigates diverse environmental pollutants and their impacts on human and ocean health. She is a member of the Ocean Protection Council Science Advisory Team and the California Environmental Contaminant Biomonitoring Program. Please go ahead, Eunah.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I hope this works. Everybody can see the slide.
Yes, we can.
Do you hear me well too?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for inviting me to give a presentation today. I'm really honored to share the study, our project, with all the audience today. Today, I will introduce the project, which was funded by the CSU COAST. And also, this is not just my study. This is the multiple researchers and students in our university, in San Diego State University. Also is a collaborative project with the University of Toronto and Oregon State University. We are very, very pleased to conduct this project with the experts in the SDSU and also outside of the campus as well. So why we focus on this project? Why do we focus on tire wear particles and microfibers in this project? There are various kinds of microplastics out there. Why we focus on these two products? First, tire particles and microfibers are common in the California water environments. Tire particles comprises 50% of microparticles in the stormwater runoff in California. Microfibers are major microplastic in wastewater. Many originate from laundry and clothing. Also, these two microplastic types are known to harm the environments by multiple studies. One of the very important study is Pacific Northwest coho salmon experience increased mortality from exposure to stormwater containing tire wear particles, and specifically to a chemical, 60-ppd quinone, which is published in Science in 2021. And also the food dilution through consumption of microfibers can increase mortality and fitness in wildlife as well. And according to the California Ocean Science Trust report in 2021, there is a gap. There's a research gaps on exposure and fate and transport of microplastics, and specifically their leachates as well. So our project, we focus on the leachates of the tire wear particles. But this presentation specifically, we're going to talk about the results of this. Okay, so what's the tire wear particles happens in the environment, and specifically in this California weather and the coastal environment conditions? This diagram simplifies that tire wear particles in the coastal, specifically coastal environments. So the car generates and produces the tire wear particles, and it settles on the street and the road. And we have a long dry season, and with a very sunny days. If you think about it, all this solar, the sunlight really expose, radiate these particles on the streets and roads. And then what happens, when we enter the rainy season, and then all the rains comes to the roads and streets, and then it washes them out to the coastal environment. So we can kind of imagine it like definitely tire wear particles go to the coastal environments. That the study already found it. And then also this tire wear particles will leach the chemicals, because if you think about it, tire wear particles are composed of multiple chemicals through the synthesis. Also, we also wonder about what about the chemicals happen? Their fates under the sunlight as well. And the second, we also examine the toxicity of these leachates from tire wear particles. So this is the laboratory experiment. So we need definitely micron size of tire wear particles mimicking the real environment, the real tire wear particles. So this is actually provided by the Harper Lab and Oregon State University. We have two questions here. So tire particles will leach chemicals in water, in our experiments. And then the second question is that as a smaller particles, like a micron size of tire wear particles leach more chemicals compared to the large pieces. This is the one question that if we focus on the chemicals leaching from the plastics, really the size matters. So the experimental setup is based on these two different sizes. One is the large tire wear particles, we made about 1 milliliter, and the small tire particles is less than 90 micron size, so the same amount of the tire particles in the same amount of water. And then we have the experiments like at different days. So if these tire particles in the water for different times, is that the chemicals are gonna leach more and more. And then what if these chemicals are leaching in the one day even? This is the very fundamental questions to us. And then after that, and then what happened to these chemicals if they are exposed to the sunlight? And then what this leachate is gonna cause toxicity? So the first result I'm showing here, I hope you can follow this. It's basically the title shows the result. So here, the bottom of the graph is basically the control. We always have the control experiments without tire particles, but in the seawater only. And then the black one is the large pieces of tire particles. We have always duplicates experiments. So you can see the A and B. And the red is the fine particles. It's the micron size of tire particles. We also have two duplicates as well. The y-axis shows the dissolved organic carbon. This is one way of the quantified it, how much organic chemicals are coming out in the leachate, are present in the leachate. So if the numbers dissolved organic carbon is high, that means there are more chemicals in the leachate. The x-axis is the days. So we experimented 1 day, 3 days, 6 days, 12 days. You can see that the same amount of tire particles, the smaller size, the micron size tire particles leach larger amounts of chemicals than large pieces tire particles. At the same time, and over time, total organic chemicals concentration has increased over time as well. So if it was in the water for longer period, the more chemicals are coming out, okay? And we also checked what those chemicals are exactly. We show the total amount of chemicals in the leachate, what chemicals it can be. The graph shows that number of potential compounds, basically number of chemicals that we found in the same leachates. So over time, you can see the baseline of the control also going up. But if you can tell, the small tire particles, large tire particles, both have a lot more chemicals than the control, okay? And then also over time, number of chemicals are leached from the tire particles as well. Some of them chemicals we are able to identify. And then these are just at least a few of them. You can see that actual chemicals we found is several hundred chemicals in the leachate. But these are the chemicals that we want to address it here is very interesting. The first chemical is especially the 6-PPD quinone. It was the same compound that the Science magazine paper, they actually found that it causes the toxicity in Pacific Northwest coast salmon. We tested further of these leachates under UV irradiation to mimic the sunlight environments. So we currently analyze what the chemicals in this leachate exposed to the sunlight. And then the analysis is currently in progress. In addition, that we tested the toxicity of this leachate. Zebrafish is one of the animal model organisms which can serve the human toxicity and also aquatic toxicity as well. And this is very simplified slide. And then there's A, B, C. The A is the control. There's exposure to normal water. It's totally fine. And there's a normal zebrafish environment condition in the tank. The B is exposed to the leachates under dark conditions. So basically, there's no sunlight. The leachates has no sunlight. It's basically the tire particle leachates made under dark condition, and that was tested to the zebrafish. The C is that the leachate was made under sunlight, solar conditions. So it's all the tests were labricates, that we followed the very strict experimental conditions. And this is the one of the each is very symbol, the representative image. So what you can see.
One more minute.
Okay, what you can see is that you can see the deformation compared to the A control A. So B and C, both those zebrafish exposed to the leachates show the deformation. And also that when we tested the dose response, it also worked. So more doses exposed, and then we see higher toxicity. Okay, I'm ending my presentation. I hope this is okay.
Thank you very much, Eunah. I really appreciate it. And next, I thought I was going to be introducing Senator Ben Allen. His senior consultant is here, Tina Andolina. So Tina, maybe I'll.
Oh, Amy, I'm going to interrupt you. We actually have the senator here.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah. So we've got they call the Democratic Caucus meeting for the Senate. So I'm gonna come give a little presentation, maybe answer a question, and then Tina will be here to answer any additional follow-up questions, so I can get back to the other meeting, and then I'll try to come back if it finishes.
Well, thank
you.
So
they gave us a nice little room here in the historic Capitol for us to take this.
Thank you so much for making the extra effort. Let me just introduce you briefly, and then I'll turn it over to you. So. Senator Ben Allen represents the 26th Senate District, which covers West Side, Hollywood, and coastal South Bay communities of Los Angeles County. Senator Allen is a leader on environmental issues, chairing both the Environmental Caucus and the Environmental Quality Committee. He's a member of the Ocean Protection Council as well. Senator Allen has a law degree from UC Berkeley. So please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Fantastic. Okay, here we go. Are you able to see our slides?
Yes.
Okay, great.
If there's any,
well,
yeah, perfect.
Yeah, can you see, it says Ocean Day 2022?
Yes.
Perfect, okay, all right. Well, we've got a little presentation about the plastic policy landscape. You've obviously now heard quite a bit about the science and some of the work that's happening on the regulatory side, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what's been happening on the political side. And as I mentioned, I'll be here for a bit, and then Tina, who's been working so hard on our efforts, can answer some additional questions. But certainly it's clear from everything we've been discussing so far that we really need consistent and permanent policies in place that will reduce the amount of plastic pollution that leaches into our environment and our bodies. And that's why we introduced SB 54, which is a bill that's been on the docket for a little while now, which seeks to establish a comprehensive framework for reducing plastic pollution. The legislation has three key pillars. First of all, it would require producers to reduce at the source the amount of throwaway packaging and food serviceware as much as possible. We continue to see so much overpackaging out there in the market, as well as disposable containers instead of reusable ones. The second pillar of the bill, SB 54, requires that whatever's left on the market has to be truly recyclable or compostable. And when I say truly recyclable, I mean we need to, we need more than just simply giving Californians that good feeling from sorting a bottle into a blue recycling bin just because they see the recycling symbol on there. We need that bottle to really be recycled, entirely recycled, turned into another product, which is then recycled into yet another product over and over and over again. There's a lot of things that are technically recyclable, but they don't end up getting recycled in the end of the day. And of course, part of that involves building up markets to take that recycling material, to turn it into a new product. And so that's something that's an important part of this as well. And that's one of the reasons why we have really ambitious recycling rates with our bill. The third pillar is shifting the burdens of managing packaging material to the producers instead of our city and county governments, or really where they are right now with individual consumers. We put so much responsibility on the consumer to do the right thing and recycle or sort their trash. and in the end of the day, the folks who really have the most power over whether these items are going to end up in the river or in a landfill or turned into another product are the producers. And yet right now they have no skin in the game. There's no accountability. There's no role that they play really, or at least no required role when it comes to thinking about the end use of their product. So the bill allows producers a great deal of flexibility on how to achieve the mandates, but it does require them to work together through what are called producer responsibility organizations to increase efficiency. And this is really about both mandating, but also empowering producers to take the lead in this area. We had situations where when one producer, for example, changed the resin type of a particular detergent bottle, and that was a decision they made for aesthetic reasons, and it literally that one decision rendered the product non-recyclable. And as I say, there was no consequence at all. There's no literally the consequence. Well, there is a consequence. The consequence is not just environmental, as we've been discussing, but it's also the ever increasing costs on cities and on consumers. Cities used to be making money off of recycling all the material they would collect. Now they're actually losing money just to be able to meet their diversion goals. And so much of this has to do with the fact that the Chinese implemented their national sword policy, which ended the practice of shipping off so much of our recycled material to China. Of course, the whole thing was, we were living a lie. So much of that material was ending up incinerated or in rivers in Asia. So now, one of the things that we struggle with is that virgin plastic material is so cheap, right? And so in nearly every case, a producer who has no incentive to do any better will opt for the cheap virgin plastic option. It's cheap, of course, at the point of sale. It's not cheap for us as a society. But of course, that ends up creating a vicious cycle, because it also undermines the market for recycled material. People keep doubling down on the cheap virgin material, so they're not turning to recycling markets to buy plastic material to produce the next generation of plastic products. So by requiring that packaging is cheap, higher rate, producers will pursue more sustainable alternatives, and we hope to create a virtuous cycle. So the bill pushes producers to invest in a robust reuse and refill infrastructure. It calls for a shift from material types that cannot be recycled, meaning that they're destined for the landfill or an incinerator or lost or littered in the environment. And third, the bill pushes producers to build the market for post-consumer content that will also boost collection efforts, keeping material out of the oceans, rivers, and every corner of our communities. And our goal ultimately here is to create the infrastructure and push companies to make sustainable material so that consumers don't have to think twice when standing at their disposal bins trying to determine if something should go into the trash or into the recycling bin. And in addition, when they're at the store, but they're not having to sit there deciding, what's a more environmentally friendly option when they have so few tools to even evaluate the answer to that question. Let me touch on a couple of the few critical elements of the policy that we're developing, and certainly, Tina can answer more questions about this when you go into Q&A, because she's been leading this negotiation. But on source reduction, the goal is to reduce the overall amount of plastic packaging and foodware that come into the system in the first place. So that's a tough thing to define, and it's certainly, I think, proving to be one of the stickiest portions of our negotiation. We know that recycling alone is not going to do enough to ensure that we keep plastics out of the environment. We're looking to achieve an initial reduction measured against a baseline. So, for example, we require producers to reduce the amount of packaging on the market by 25%, measured against the amount on the market in, say, like 2023, similar to what we did with greenhouse gas emissions, where we were looking at reductions below 1990 levels, for example. Then we'll put in tools. We'll put tools in place to ensure those reductions are sustained, even as businesses in our economy grows. Of course, we also want to make sure that we're not penalizing companies that have done the right thing by reducing packaging in the past. So they need to be given a little more leeway. Now, these tools that I talk about would include reuse and refill mandates, prohibiting access prohibiting like excessive packaging, shifting products out of plastic packaging altogether. And then by 2032, the remaining packaging or foodware that's still on the market would then have to be sustainable, meaning that it's fully recyclable or compostable. So to ensure that we drive industry to create the end markets necessary to collect and process the material, we include mandated recycling rates that ramp up to 75% by 2032. Again, this will guarantee that the producers buy the material that consumers are throwing into the recycling bin and turn that into new packaging. And of course, if manufacturers don't buy the material, then it will fail. Then the manufacturers will fail to meet the required rates, and then their products will be prohibited in the state. Whoops. Are you guys?
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay. You have stopped screen sharing. Are you able to?
Again? Sorry.
Okay.
Whoever was sharing the screen.
All right, we'll go back to
start sharing.
We'll go back to the screen share. Let's see. Start broadcast. I don't know. That's strange. Okay. You've been seeing the slides. Okay.
Yes, we have.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah.
So, the bill calls for a for formation of producer responsibility organizations, which would be subject to state oversight. So these would be these organizations that the producers would come together and form, and they'd be run by the organizations. They're the ones who know their products the best, but then the state would have a role in overseeing and holding them accountable to ensuring that they're meeting their various rates and dates. I also want to point out that one tool that we're looking into that we've seen work really well in Europe and elsewhere is eco-modulated fees. So this is where you have producers who choose to use packaging that's harder or more expensive to handle. Those folks pay more into the recycling system to recognize the fact that their product is harder to handle. It's not exactly like a cap and trade, but it's got echoes of that. The idea is that if for whatever reason their business model requires these more difficult products, less recyclable, less environmentally friendly products, they would basically pay into the system to help the system better handle the collection and sorting and recycling of the product. And of course, part of the idea here is that we don't want to have a situation where we have one company subsidizing another company's decision. There's a freeloader problem here that we're trying to address through the exploration of eco-modulated fees that can then also hopefully drive industry to make more sustainable packaging decisions. All right, so we came achingly close to passing this bill almost 2 years ago at the end of session. So what's happened? Well, we now have a group of supporters from. There's an interesting combination of folks from the waste industry and the environmental community who came together to qualify a measure for the 2022 ballot, which is an aggressive plastics measure that's similar to what we'd proposed, but it's got some differences. The ballot measure, of course, polls very well, though we also know that if industry spends $1 gazillion attacking it, it could really jeopardize its chances of passage. And I think that's put everyone in a place where they're actually interested in trying to negotiate. If we could, we have this mechanism in the legislature where if we can negotiate a legislative deal that would make the promoters, the supporters of the ballot measure pull back the ballot measure because they feel like whatever legislation we pass is strong enough, then we can take that path instead and avoid the unpredictability and the expense of going to the ballot. So we've got stakeholders come to the table. They are involved in a very intense negotiation to see if we can find a legislative solution that would enable the ballot measure supporters to draw the initiative. The negotiations have been difficult. There are a lot of different stakeholders, a lot of different perspectives. Plus, we also have a real tight deadline. We have till the end of June, basically, to pass a bill before the Secretary of State, who's our chief elections officer, starts the process of certifying everything for the state ballot and finalizing the statewide voter information guide. So the idea is that this deal is only going to go through if the ballot measure gets pulled. So we're really stuck with the deadline of when the ballot measure has to be pulled. But I think we're in a place now where we really do believe that because of the potential for this expensive ballot battle that I was talking about, the industry is now eager to get to an agreement on the legislative side. And I'm really proud of the progress we've made. We've certainly, not only in terms of the negotiations, but also just our previous efforts. And so many people on this Zoom have been a part of this effort, just to raise the profile of this plastics pollution problem. We've gotten members of the legislature, people in the political world, the policy world, to focus on this issue in ways that they just simply weren't a couple of years back. This was off of people's radar screens. And I think our collective effort together, our office and our great allies, Senator Skinner and Assemblymember Gonzalez and Rivas and Stern, and Weiner, and Becker. There's been a great team of folks who've been working really hard on these issues. Comlog, a long list of fantastic legislators who've been working a lot in this space. And I think those of us on the legislative side and those of you in the advocacy side and the science side have been working hard to raise the profile of this issue, so that now many more of our colleagues feel like they really need to do something, that we need to act, that they feel badly that we haven't acted, they feel badly that they stood in the way perhaps of previous efforts to do the right thing. So I think now we're at a point where it's no longer a question of if we will pass a comprehensive policy to end the use of unsustainable packaging and food serviceware, but more how it will get done. Does it get done through a legislative initiative, ballot measure? Does it happen, this year? We hope, or will we continue to kick the can? Either we'll pass a bill or the voters will have their say, and it's kind of forced the question. It's called the question. So anyhow, I just want to thank everyone on this slide, on the Zoom for all your advocacy. You've helped to get us to this point where we're so close to getting really meaningful policy passed that I think will have global implications, and certainly national, as our friends in Congress struggle to get good legislation passed there that even come close to what we're talking about here in California. So anyhow, we've been, Tina on my team is right here. She's going to be part of the Q&A. I'm happy to take a question or two right now before I get back to my caucus. And as I say, I'll try to come back later, but here's her email if anyone wants to contact her. If you have thoughts or suggestions, you want to be part of this conversation, please do reach out to us. And really appreciate your interest in this topic.
Yep. Thank you so much, Senator Allen. We really appreciate you, especially with such a busy schedule. I'm going to try to tee up one question for you before you head off. And I know you just talked a little bit about the ballot measure, but we have a question that came in from Roberta, and maybe you can expand on what you just said. She's asking, do you see the ballot initiative as a complement or a hindrance to SB 54? And are you confident that CalRecycle will be able to fulfill its role in this process?
Yeah, I mean, look, on balance, it is absolutely a compliment. There are some things, because it really has forced the conversation with industry. Now, that being said, we came so close to passing really comprehensive policy on our own that the ballot measure has also kind of taken a lot of attention. And I do quite frankly worry that if we're not able to strike a deal and we do go to ballot and industry spends, I don't know, $125 million just pummeling people with negative messaging, and the thing loses by a little bit, we could really get set back. That is my biggest, I mean, if there's a possible road for this measure being a hindrance, that's my big fear. So it's part of why I'm so anxious for us to strike a deal first. If we're not able to, it has to be all hands on deck to get this thing passed, and that includes raising money. There are certainly some folks out there who are interested in helping to finance our efforts, but it's going to have to be really serious money given the possible industry money that might be spent. So yeah, it's a good thing, but it's risky. And then what was the second part of the question, Amy?
Excuse me. Do you feel confident in CalRecycle's ability to implement it?
Yes. Well, so that's quite frankly, one of the advantages of our legislative route is that we've added in more specificity. One of the concerns about the ballot measure is that it's pretty vague about the role of CalRecycle. They would certainly play an important role. It could really open up, I think we're concerned about potential for a lot of litigation. So, and quite frankly, and one of the things we heard over and over again while we were struggling to get those extra couple of votes to get us over the finish line a couple of years ago was a lack of confidence in CalRecycle from the legislators. Not that they're, CalRecycle, I think there's new leadership there. I think I think if we were to pass something like this or the ballot measure, they'd have to really step up their game over at CalRecycle to be able to handle a project like this. I think, I just can't imagine this issue is. He actually wrote about circularity in I would just really hope at least that he would do everything he could to ensure that that we had a really great program in place and that CalRecycle is absolutely ready. But it's an ambitious thing we'd be asking them to do. Now, of course, part of what we're trying to do is keep the onus on the producers, and really, CalRecycle's role ultimately is to hold them accountable, and to enforce and to hold accountability with regards to the rates and dates. But it's one of the many complicated aspects of this delicate negotiation.
Okay, thank you. I just want to check in with the Ocean Day organizers. Do we possibly have time? Can we go maybe 5 minutes over to 12:55?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. I actually have a question for Scott. So as we were preparing for this event, Scott was relaying to us some interesting things about federal funding for this type of work, and I was hoping, Scott, you could relay a little bit of that to the audience.
So in our human health risk assessment, we identified some research gaps, mostly around the hazards of particles to humans. And we conducted a survey of the available grants right now that have been allocated for research in the United States and elsewhere to fulfill these research gaps. We found that the US has contributed a little bit over $100,000 total to the study of the human health effects of microplastics. It's currently one pilot project funded through the NIH, whereas the European Commission has awarded over 30 million euros to a wide number of projects. So we can't just depend on Europe to fulfill these research needs. It seems like the US has opportunity to step up our game in terms of allocating some research funding to this desperately needed question about whether or not microplastics are actually affecting humans.
Thank you, Scott. And a question came in through chat that I think is best directed to Eunah. Rob asks, has anyone looked at zinc? A powerful ecotoxicant, tire rubber may have 1,000 ppm of zinc.
I think there are some papers, I think, definitely related to zinc. But in our project, we specifically focus on organic chemicals because there is a huge data gap up there. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think one for Tina. Excuse me, I'm trying to find it. I believe it was, I'm not seeing it right now, but I believe it was, will single-use mask, such that we've been using during COVID, would that fall under SB 54?
No, so SB 54 covers packaging. So if your mask came in a plastic package, the plastic package it came in would be covered, or single-use foodware. So utensils, cups, plates, bowls, that sort of thing. But initially, when we first introduced the measure, it was all single-use items. And then we spent about 6 months trying to figure out what constituted a single-use item. Like your mask, you use it 5 or 6 times. Does that make it single-use or not? Even tires came up. You put them on your car once. Is that single-use? Or because you use them for, whatever, 60,000 miles, 10,000, I actually have no idea. Is that a multi-use item? So we had to actually be specific and focus on packaging and wear.
Great. Okay, well, I think that is probably all the time we have today. So I just want to again, thank our speakers, Dr. Scott Coffin from the State Water Board, Dr. Eunah from San Diego State University, Senator Ben Allen and Tina Andolina. And also want to thank our partners from the California Ocean Science Trust, and particularly Dr. Liz Whiteman and Kia Bibby. And hopefully folks have also received through the chat our speaker biographies and a briefing sheet on the topic of microplastics and microfibers. Part of my job is, if anybody would like to connect with a CSU faculty member doing research in this area, you can get in touch with me and I will put you in touch quickly with someone who can answer your questions. So thanks again, everyone. And I think now I'm turning it back over to Laura for the next event.
Great, thank you so much, Amy. And I saw there were some questions in the chat, like whether will you have a copy of the recording? And yes, the answer is yes, we will have a copy of the recording to share. So for anyone who had to miss any portion, we'll be able to get that out. We also shared it on Facebook Live, so you can head to, I believe, CSU COAST's Facebook page, as well as the Environment California Facebook page. It was shared simultaneously, the wonders of technology on both of those. And so you can check it out there. And then we did a Zoom recording, so we can just email that out as well. And then there was a question about bios and fact sheets. Just to make sure those are handy for everyone. We can drop those back in at the bottom of the chat in case you had to leave and come back. And thank you, Amy, so much. And thank you to all of the panelists. That was such an informative panel about this growing threat of tiny, tiny plastic. And some of those facts, I don't think I'll ever be able to shake, or like, you know, the idea of how much microplastic we are consuming without even knowing it, and what an urgent call to action to work to reduce that threat. So, and then I know that folks are zipping in and out of legislative meetings, many of the participants, and so wanted to just take a minute and do a quick reminder that if you are doing any lobby meetings, make sure that you're getting the notes from those meetings into the Google form we're collecting today. We want those all collected by the end of the day today, so that any follow-up can happen right away. And if you need the link to I'm going to drop the link to the notes in the chat as well, so that you also have that. And then we're going to get started in another couple of minutes. We have, we're joined today, we're so grateful to be joined today by Violet Sage Walker, who's the chairwoman for the Northern Chumash Tribal Council, and she's going to provide another keynote address. And we're going to also get to watch a really cool video in a moment. So definitely encourage folks to hang on, stick around for that great panel. Keynote. And then one other announcement, if people have questions for the panelists that you didn't get to ask earlier, you can still drop them in the chat or send an email to any of the panel organizers at CSU COAST or to the Ocean Day organizers, and we'll work to make sure we get those questions to the panelists so that folks can get their questions answered too.